welcome back to The Watch. And Nathan, Brandon Sanderson might be helping, like, is it hyperbolic to say is saving the independent publishing scene? Not really, probably. Not that much, but it's certainly helping.
I think he's definitely caused a ripple in terms of, being able to self-publish books that people actually enjoy and love. And he's shown that people don't need big publishers, basically, to back them as authors to be successful now.
So, to let everyone know, if you're not aware, Brandon Sanderson is probably one of the most famous, popular fantasy authors in the world. One of my favorite authors. See all these books? Those are all Sanderson right there. Mistborn, Way of Kings. He finished off Wheel of Time. When I say Way of Kings, Starlight Archives, of course, and that's just scratching the surface. He is a very prolific writer.
I think he's the most prolific fantasy author currently living.
Without a doubt.
Yes.
Without a doubt, right? And he is a tremendously awesome person.
Yes.
A really nice guy. I've been able to work with him in the past, which is pretty cool. So, in case people don't know, I was the weapons and the kind of history fantasy type merge consultant for Rhythm of War, as a matter of fact. In fact, if you go to the acknowledgements in Rhythm of War, the second page, you will see right here, we had a few very important subject experts help us with this book. Shad, Shadiversity Brooks, was our primary historical martial arts consultant.
That's cool.
Right there. That is and so I've interviewed him before, and we send an email to each other now and then, and genuinely top tier, brilliant guy. And one of the things that is so great about him is that he wants to help other authors. He wants to lift, basically, this, not necessarily industry, but the craft. Because when it comes to the industry, he sees the cracks in the boat, the flaws and the problems with traditional publishing. And he broke out through traditional publishing, yet he's gotten so popular now, he's not reliant on it anymore. And I forget how long, I mean, it's over a year now, probably. He's so prolific, right? He has his kind of contractual obligations to fulfill, the next, like in the series and so on and so forth. And his book, the next Stormlight Archives book, right, is so important to Tor publishing and stuff. It is Tor, I think. Yeah. Is it? This is the Australian release. I believe it was Tor then. Anyway, so important to them that they rely on his book to be in the green every year. Like his release probably, brings in, I don't know, maybe 50% of their revenue, if not more.
A substantial amount.
It's a large amount, right? He fulfills that. But he is so prolific that during lockdown, he didn't have to go to conventions and stuff like that. He wrote an additional 4 books. And because they were outside of any contractual obligations, he self-published them.
Yep.
And I think, how much did he make off it? It was over 20 million, I think.
It was a lot of money.
Huge. It was huge.
Wasn't that the biggest one they've done off of books before? Like, I
think so. Kickstarter on books. Now, the big thing about him doing that, and this is just the prelude, by the way, but you guys need to know about this, right? It is such a brilliant example of the power that individuals have, right? Self-publishing, and that you do not need to rely on the gatekeepers anymore. And he still tries to support and, fulfill, thing, but he doesn't need it. And he's also showing the power of direct-to-consumer business models. And so he even does a bit of a hybrid now. I talked to this in the interview that I had with him, where he has so much influence as an author, he can leverage certain adventures. All right, if I give you this type of, deal, I get to keep these rights, and then he can distribute it. And so it seems like he has kept the leather-bound publishing rights for his series.
That's smart.
That is very smart. Well, the reason why it worked for him, and he has talked about this, right, is that leather-bound is not profitable or not hugely viable for traditional publishing because it has such a expensive outlay cost.
It's a high cost.
Yeah, and for a publisher, they need to buy in bulk, large amounts, and they have trouble moving, like shipping and things like that. But if you do a pre-launch campaign, essentially it's a pre-sales campaign, right? You get an exact confirmed amount of what you need, and then you can go straight to print with the amount and with basically zero risk. So much so that the model works so well That's exactly what I did. Because Nathan, look what we have here. Could you grab that for me right there?
This also is leather bound.
This is the Shadow of the Conqueror. So Shadow of the Conqueror is my novel, and this is the Shadow of the Conqueror leather bound that I also made available in the launch campaign for the Shadow of the Conqueror graphic novel, which I also did in leather bound. First graphic novel in leather bound, by the way. I don't think anyone did it, but I'm a fan of collecting leather bounds. Look, I collect them all already. And also kind of cool is the printer that made this leather bound is the same one that does Brandon Sanderson's leather bound. So top quality, right? But I could do this, right, and make a profit off it, where traditional publishing...
You wouldn't be able to.
They wouldn't. It is not so viable. So we can put that back. Actually, I don't know. Well, could we put it here? Can we, like, right... Hey, look at that. That's an appropriate place for this video, don't you think? And so Brandon, right, I think he was able to leverage to keep the leather bound rights, and he's recently launched the leather bound for the next Stormlight Archives book. You want to guess like how much it's made so far?
How many millions?
It's like over $11 million.
Okay. Double digits.
And he's selling so many leather bound that now I think a publisher would wish that they kept it.
Oh, for sure.
But they didn't have faith in it. No. And he is able to market it properly and make it really successful and do gorgeous, like top tier. And people love these collector items. I've seen success myself. And so he's just raking it in. But the kind of takeaway of that is that it's had influence to kind of do a bit of traditional, bit of independent. The thing that I feel Brandon can happily qualify for, I'm not sure he likes taking on monikers or anything like that, but I think he is when I say leader, he's one of the most successful Iron Age creators now, because Iron Age is the moniker given to the independent movement currently for creation, and you don't need to like qualify for any type of ideology or anything, but if you're making independent content that people like, that's good, and generally, I guess, not filled with woke propaganda. That doesn't mean like people on the left or right. I don't know, like there are a lot of people on the left that do not like this woke crap. They just make a good product, direct to your audience. That's kind of the Iron Age movement. And Brandon, even if he doesn't like to be associated or connect or say, it shows the power of what the Iron Age movement is able to achieve because that's exactly it. Like independent, creation, direct to consumer, good quality, people will show up, and it's the removal of the gatekeeping. And that is just brilliant and has shown a lot of success by that. Now, there are still a couple of issues, though, because there are some platforms that are harder to go completely independent. You can go completely independent with print now, and I've experienced that. And I've done print on demand with my novel, and we've done the launch campaign for the second edition. This is the second edition, and we've got the second edition versions there. Hugely successful, okay? But setting up a system where they can continually get it without the pre-sales and then print and launch kind of stagnation approach is a lot harder. Because then if you want to go fully independent in continually selling, a book that you're self-publishing and organizing and printing, then you do need to like buy a bulk amount, have it in storage, be able to ship it out with each sale, and it's a bit difficult. And so you do rely on other methods, and one of the best ones at the moment is print on demand, which is they purchase it and it prints right away. But the problem is much less royalties when you do that. Then we also come to audiobooks. Audiobooks are a sticking point right now, and it's tricky. And I have been umming and ahhing, and I've talked to you about it, about what I might want to do with my next novel when I get it done. I'm working on so many things at the moment, but I will eventually finish my next novel. And I don't know if I would go through Audible again or do it 100% myself. And there's problems laced with it and everything, because one of the big advantages about publishing through Audible is that you do get a lot of additional sales. Like the audiobook version of my novel has done really well. It accounts for over 50% of the sales of the book complete. That's when you take into account like print and digital. And then because when people, I got great narrators, Michael Kramer, Kate Redding, and so when you're on the Audible platform, it's like, hey, you like these narrators, check out this book. They also did that. My book, a lot of people buy my book by Brandon Sanderson stuff, right? And it's got the same kind of hard magic type of stuff, so it appeals to the same audiences. And so when people are buying Brandon's, the recommendation system actually works pretty well and gives me a good chunk of additional sales. And then the fact that it has the review system. It gives you a really good indication of if people are liking the book. Shadow the Conqueror has 4.6 out of 5 stars on it. And so very high recommendation. People are really loving it. And there's lots of benefits of it. But that gives Audible a lot of control. And this is something that not only, publishers on Audible have had an issue with, Brandon has had an issue with as well. And so he's done something recently, and this is like such a GIGA-CHAD move, right? This is just awesome. And it just shows how much of a quality person he is and how much he's looking out for independence, right? He really is trying to lift the craft for everyone. When he launched these secret books, okay, he went independent distribution in terms of the printing, and he did not distribute them on Audible. Audible is the main platform for audiobooks. It's the place to go. It's kind of a monopoly. And because they have a monopoly, well, they can then really kind of screw creators over. And there's some issues about Audible in terms of paying royalties, getting accurate information on how much you're actually making off the book sales versus because most people get books on Audible through the credit system, which is like, okay, how much money are you getting off the credit? It should be the same percentage amount, but what if there's like a special where people get freebies and or the credit amount is different 1 month or any number of things. Authors weren't getting information on that. And then there's the royalty split. This is a digital product. So the overheads, okay, is nearly zero apart from paying for server space, okay? This is not like a brick and mortar store where you have to pay for storage and shipping and staff wages and all that. And so Audible has been just making a killing, right? And passing on very little to the creators. There, in a lot of other industries, right, that are selling digital products, the creators get a much higher revenue return. We're talking about now almost like 70% at sometimes. You want to guess what the revenue model for Audible is on average?
I might lowball it and say like 20%.
Okay, so you're close.
Okay.
So this is the thing. I'm on Audible, so I know the contract, and I've gone through this entire process, right? If you do non-exclusive, which means if you publish on Audible, but don't sign a contract where it'll only be on Audible, and when an exclusive contract for Audible is Audible, iTunes, and something else, but it allows for iTunes, I think, as well. But that's if you sign it, you're exclusive to that. If you don't, you can publish on other platforms. There's other audiobook platforms that you only get 25%. If you sign 25%.
25%. Okay.
Pittance, right? But if you sign the exclusive, I think it might be 20. I can't remember, 20 or 25. But if you sign the exclusivity contract, you get 40%.
That's still pretty low, though.
Still very low.
Like the standard for most, like if you were to do something like on the App Store or even on Steam, it's usually 70% is what you get.
Yeah.
And that's before things like taxes from, for example, if you sell it in the US, you pay US tax and then local tax as well. So that's a very small part of the pie you end up getting.
Yeah. And this is a digital product, bear in mind. I could distribute this digital product with very little overhead at all and get nearly 100% of the profit in return. One of the difficulties is piracy. Thing is, though, I mean, even on my ebook, I didn't put it's DD something I am order protection, which means you can just pirate it easily. Because I also figure like people will pirate it anyway, and usually people who pirate it are people who wouldn't have purchased it in the first place. And then if they really like it, it actually means that they're more inclined to buy a physical copy. And so I didn't put that on. And there's that kind of, I'm playing with that with the audio thing is like, because the way that I'd have to distribute it is almost like an audio file. I can't like encode it or something like that unless I made a special app that you need to download or I don't know. And then there. So yeah. The thing is though, I stand to make more money per sale if I distribute it independently. But I don't benefit out of the review system, the recommendation system, and the fact that so many people are already on the Audible platform, and so there's a big audience there to reach. So even me, who has a means to sell directly to an audience, because I've got my YouTube fans and my book fans and things like that, and I can reach them directly, there's still a lot of incentive to go on Audible, but the money isn't one of them. And I did do exclusivity to get the 40%, and I made a good amount of money. I've sold in audiobook between 20 and 30,000 copies. My overall sales for my novel, combining everything, is 40 to 50,000 sales at the moment. So that's pretty good. So, all right, for the 40%, right? So what Brandon has been saying is that is too low.
Yes.
Okay, it should be much, much higher, especially for a digital product. And he then said he would not put his secret books or on Audible, and he put them on Spotify instead. And my wife has tried to listen to them on Spotify. It's not a great way to listen to audiobook. She's had issues with that.
Yeah.
The other thing, Audible is very convenient. It works. We've been sponsored by Audible on Shadiversity a lot. And
They're a good service. They just don't necessarily... They're not a fair service, I would say.
So recently, Brandon has just announced that Audible have come to the table and negotiated with him to improve things for creators to get him back on the platform. And this is big, right? Because it says a number of things. One, it says, I think they would only be willing to do this, right, if they knew that they would stand to make so much money off of having Brandon's books on Audible, more than the loss that they would be taking
from other people,
from the independent small creators. That's how big of a brand he has become, right? A big of an author he's become. And so that is power. That is weight. And I'm just genuinely thrilled for him. I think that is brilliant. But I also think it's funny that he is that influential as an author now because he's that popular. I mean, look at his Kickstarter. They're making millions and millions of dollars. And so Audible could see the money. And because this is the reality, right? Only the top, 1-2% of actual authors and everything, right, make around 99% of the revenue in the, publishing genre fiction market. Everyone else is barely... Do you know the average amount of sales for each traditionally published book?
Is it like a couple of hundred?
I think it's like 3,000.
Okay, that's more than I thought.
The average. I've sold nearly 50,000, by the way.
Good for you, Shad. You did. You broke through.
Thank you. But that's traditional publishing, right?
Yes.
And so even people who think getting published by big, it's like most authors don't.
Well, even then, I know I've talked to authors who've done traditional publishing. It's like 3,000 sales, for example. They will get maybe 3 cents of the book because of how much publishers take, how much printing takes, how much everything like. Bad publishing deals can also cause...
It can. The standard is like a paperback that sells for like maybe $15 US, is you'll probably make $1, $2 off of that sale. Hardcover, you'll make a bit more. But even print on demand, it's similar. Like print on demand, I make maybe $3 off of softcover sales. I make more off of hardcover, nearly around 12. My audio book, right? But because the credit is like... I forget what the credit is. Isn't it $25, $30? I can't remember now. Maybe 50. I can't remember. All I know is that after conversion to Australian,
right,
I make around $10 per audio, which means that it's more like $7, $6 or $7 US. And that's 40% of whatever it is. Extrapolate, right? Okay, so Audible has come back to the table. And this was not, and Brandon, he's made a post on this on his website, right? And he has said this was not to get him a sweetheart deal behind the scenes. He wanted the same deal as other authors. Honest, good on you, guy. And this is what he has said. He says that they're going to be giving creators on Audible more transparency about how much money they're making. So, that's really good. He says that there will be a revenue increase, but it's not going to be the 70%. I think I know how much it's going to be.
How much?
I have some insider knowledge here, Nathan.
Oh, do you?
Yes. Okay. So I was already aware of the 40% exclusivity thing. As I was prepping for producing my audiobook, I was working with Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, and they are famous audio narrators. And so they know lots of different publishers and also companies that produce audiobooks. And they did suggest a company that might produce and distribute my audiobook for me. And so I talked with them briefly about it. And they offered me 40% on the audiobook. And I was like, how are you able to get that? I thought Audible only offer 40%. Are you making any money at all? And then they said to me, well, actually, they're able to negotiate higher rates for themselves and then still give me the thing. And so Audible will give higher rates to people who have leverage, right, that go to them directly. But if you go through their normal publishing thing, you're locked in. You can't do anything else. And I think what they were able to get was like 50%. And then they keep 10%, and then I got 40. And so I don't think Audible is being too generous in changing the percentage. I think they're just going to be giving independent creators, bear in mind, because if you're independent, right, you don't have a third party that they need to revenue split with anyway. And so because for most major publishers, it seems like they're really doing something like 50%, and then the creators getting the same amount, right? And their publishers getting 10%. The independent creators that don't have a publisher, right? If they just give, fine, we'll give you the 50%. That's what they've been giving with the larger things anyway. And the independent creators are such a small thing, they're barely going to be losing anything on it. So I actually don't think it's that generous. But my prediction will be the exclusivity will be 50%, and the non-exclusive will be something like 30%. Maybe 40, but that's my prediction. We would all like it to be better. Now, it's an improvement.
Yes.
It's an improvement. And even Brandon says it's not going to be the 70%, and it's not at where I would like it to be. He also mentioned that when he was first getting published, his agent negotiated for 2 weeks to just increase his royalty by 2%, right? Because over the long run, it does make a difference. And look, I've sold between 20 and 30,000 audiobook copies. Yeah, an extra 10% wouldn't be bad. And this is kind of the takeaway. Small steps, but it is an improvement. My concern is that there's not going to be an additional improvement. That this is Audible's going to be locked in. They're not going to move from that for a while until someone makes another move. And Brandon, part of this deal is that he is going to be bringing his secret books now to Audible. Look, it's brilliant. I think so many independent authors and creators are very grateful for what Brandon is doing. We would like it to be better, and I don't think it's necessarily going to change then. Audible is still going to be now the kingpin of the audiobook market, and I'm not sure they're going to improve that rate.
I think the only way to improve really is to have actual competition in the market, to have someone actually taking away chunks of their revenue, and that's when they'd adjust it. I think, obviously, Brandon Sanderson took some of their revenue, so they freaked out a bit, but I agreed that that's still not a good deal for independent creators as much as we'd want, and it's going to take some bigger guns, and not just like an author, but like an entire business to start competing with them before we see real changes.
Yeah, and so for the Iron Age, right, there are some kind of centralized websites that list indie projects, but I don't think it goes far enough. So I think indiecron.com is a website that lists a lot of independent graphic novels. And so Shadow the Conqueror was listed. But the thing is, I don't think they're as active because they didn't list Shadow the Conqueror until I asked them. They said, their response was like, oh, I didn't think you would need us listed because you've got more reach than us. And it wasn't really about that. It's that I want to see a centralized kind of thing that I could then help promote and build. What I would love to see is a type of centralized website, right, that doesn't just do graphic novels, does all independent stuff, and then have like a rating review system there, then recommendations based on what people are liking and all that, because that would then perhaps start to replace some of what Audible is offering creators. But again, they got such a big platform. Look, their business model is very smart. The whole credit system, because it keeps people on the platform, keeps people buying more books because it's like, oh, I got a free credit. It's like, well, I got to get a book, right? And the credit is cheaper than what the retail costs are. And as a result, it drives sales more than what people would usually get anyway. And so when people have a free credit and they see Shadow the Conqueror there, and it's like, got a good rating. People who read Brandon Sanderson like it. It's got Michael Kramer Kate rating. Sure, I'll give it a go. And so I think I've gotten a lot of sales that way, which is beneficial. So it's a good platform. Just, I don't know how we
raise your cuts to be a bit more fair for independents.
But they don't. They're not going to do. They're making too much money off it. And even this deal, I don't think they're actually going to be losing that much money because they're
getting more money back.
Yeah, well, they're going to get Brandon on it, and then they're basically only offering independents kind of the same deal that they were giving publishers in the first place, and it's the small independent creators that don't add up to a large percentage of the audiobooks on the platform. Brandon's books are probably going to sell more than double, triple what the entire independent kind of and there's very few independent authors on Audible that sell large volumes. I might be one of the largest independents on Audible, actually, in terms of volume of sales, independent books. I'm sure there's a couple of others. There's not many of us, though, that can be fully independent and sell a high amount. And my level of sales is nothing compared to someone like Brandon, right? And I'm still one of the more successful independent, publishers on Audible. So, yeah, it's Audible isn't set to lose much at all out of all of this. And it's like we get a crumb, but it's better than nothing. It's you know.
And we're grateful for Brandon for at least, you know, it's not
Yes.
just him doing his own deal. He came to the table saying, it's not just me it's going to benefit, it's going to be other people too. So
Yeah.
that's a Chad move, I think.
Absolute Chad move. I'm trying to think what it would take to get like a platform that, you know, could compete with Audible. And I think it would take someone like Brandon. And I don't want to put this on Brandon. It's not his responsibility. But in reality, it would take someone like Brandon launching his own publishing, audiobook publishing platform. And he would be willing to give them those things because he has such a huge fan base. Oh, boy, massive fan base that would then just go to the platform. And then anyone who else is publishing on the platform then could get access to that audience if there's recommendations and reviews and things. And it would attract a lot of people because he would offer them the 70%.
Yeah.
I think even the other publishing companies would go to him. Like Brandon has been telling Tor and the actual publishing industries that they're crazy, that they should have launched their own independent audiobook platform years ago. It's too late now. But when he made this massive release and made all this money, he was talking about all the problems in the industry that they're not really answering, and that's why he did some independent stuff. And leather-bound, but other just simple things that he is offering in his like campaigns and stuff that traditional publishing, they're not waking up to. They're still in the Stone Age. I remember when I was consulting with Brandon, right? And we were talking about just doing some promotion on Shadiversity. Didn't pan out and stuff, but he was interested in sponsoring a video. And he mentioned to me, right, that his publisher spends something like up to $50,000 or something for advertising in, was it the New York? Don't quote me on this because I can't remember now, but it was something like the New York Times or something like that. And he says, none of his audience reads that. No one, like it's just throwing away money.
Yeah.
And he was trying to encourage them to put some investment money into advertising in areas that actually work, like YouTube. Doesn't seem like they panned out to do that, but it just emphasized how in the Stone Age, so many traditional publishing things really are, and traditional publishing is dying, right? They are only getting propped up by mega blockbuster, you know, stars like Brandon, right? And more authors are seeing the benefit of independent. Like they missed out on my book and they could have made a lot of money. I even pitched the book because I was interested in pursuing translation sales, and so I sent the book to Brandon's agent, Joshua Bilms, and he's one of the biggest, you know, literary agents in the world, and he did want to take me up and represent my book, but he wanted to represent everything. He wanted traditional publishing, and I was only looking for translations and stuff. And I said, look, I appreciate it, but I don't think it's worth it then because I get too much benefit out of traditional publishing. I don't need, you know, things. But that is, by the way, yeah, big agent wanted to pick up Shadow the Conqueror, and he read the entire book, right? And he saw it was successful. It's like, yeah, he felt he could do something, but there was not enough incentive for it. And there's going to be more and more authors like me where traditional publishing, they're just going to miss out. Okay, because we don't need them anymore. That's where things are at, and that's what the Iron Age is, and it's just going to keep growing and getting stronger. And you know, thanks to Brandon, I see him as, you know, almost a leader in the Iron Age movement, even if he's aware of it or not, because he is showing the power of direct to consumer marketing, independent publishing, and also Brandon, you're a legend for helping us out. Hopefully, you'll get better, but. You know, I mean, I'll appreciate the additional percentage. I wonder if my contract will be up because you sign in for like, I think it's a couple of year contract. I think mine was 3 years or something. I forget. It's probably going to lapse soon or something and I have to re-sign it. Because I was starting to wonder like, is there a way to like get out of the contract? Because what I could do, if I produced another version of the audiobook, and even if it's like the same book, it's a new version, right? I can publish that however the way I want. And that might be a way to get around the exclusivity thing. Look, only someone who has resources could do this, right? Produce 2 separate versions of your audiobook, sign one of the versions as the exclusivity on Audible, and then have another version as direct to customer. So all your direct ones, they can get that. And because I have the second edition version now, and there are some changes and things, and the audiobook is still in first edition. And I've been umming and ahhing about producing a second edition version of the audiobook just so it's not really necessary because I'm still getting sales of the audiobook, but sales only pick up when I publish something big next. So, but still, makes me wonder.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay on watch.